Okay, let's get into the third shiur of Tzurba Rabbanan on Hilchot Shabbos. Again, we are using the Tzurba Rabbanan volumes, the Lax Family Edition, the Weiss Family Volume, number 16, and we are steadily going through, Baruch Hashem, the Hilchot Shabbos, starting with the Assays of Shabbos. So we are in Hadlakat Nerot. We are up to the second shiur of Hadlakat Nerot, and today we'll get into who is obligated to light. We get into what happens automatically once the lighting takes place. Is there a Kabbalah Shabbos automatically or not through the lighting? So let us get into some of these details. So the Mishnah tells us, I'm on page 111, those following with the Tzurba Sefer, the Tzurba volume, page 111, who is obligated to light? So we start off with the Mishnah in Shabbos Daf Lamed Daled, which tells us, and we say this Friday night, those who say Baba Malikin, Shlosha Dvarim Tzarach Adam Lomar B'Soch Beso Erev Shabbos Imchashecha. There are three things that a person has to say to his in his home Erev Shabbos. Isartem, in the days of old, did you properly take off the tithe? Shumas and Maisros, Iravtem. And finally, the third one, important for us, Hadlakat Aner. Hadlakat Aner, the Gemara points out, this is not a question. He sees. The first two, he's not sure, so he has to ask his wife. But Hadlakat Aner, he sees the candles are lit or not lit, and he says, light the candles. The Gemara points out that one should say this in a calm voice, because Erev Shabbos, often things are a little difficult, a little challenging, a little pressurized. That's the way Shabbos is. I once heard a pshat that, Erev Shabbos is a challenge on Shalom Bayis because that is when the Adam and Chava first got thrown out of Gan Eden, and the first maybe marital strife took place then, and that's why the Satan always tries to cause problems on Erev Shabbos, and we have to overcome and make sure that the Shalom Bayis stays strong even on Erev Shabbos. Obviously, we have to work as a team, but Hadlakat Aner, we could softly say to light the candles. Again, Lamaisa, often the husbands are in shul already by the time they left the house, but either way, this is the halacha. But you see from here the idea that women are the ones that light the candles. So the question is, why? In the halacha is men and women. The Gemara doesn't say a difference. According to the Gemara, besides these remazim, but the obligation to light Halakas Erev Shabbos is incumbent upon both men and women. And the question is, what is the reason that women have become the ones to light the candles? So the first, there are two reasons given in the Rishonim. The first is really based on a medrash. The medrash in Bereishis Rabbah, you have it there, source number 2. Shalosh Rabbi Yeshua. Why was Ner Shabbos given to the women? Amar lahen. Al Yadesha Kibsa Nishmaso Shaladam Arishon, because she, Chava, or Isha at the time, because she extinguished the light of the world, Adam, the first person, so forevermore she has to bring light into the world. The Fichach Nita La Mitzvahs Ner Shabbos, that's why Ner Shabbos was given to women. So every week the woman has a schus of bringing light into the world after what Chava did. So many mitzvahs or minhagim go back to Chava Imenu, but this is one of them, and this is what's quoted by a number of the Rishonim. The Torah quotes this. I once heard, again, a minhag that is not such a common minhag, and maybe it shouldn't even be a common minhag, but it's quoted in the poskim. They say, the earlier poskim, again, not lamaisa, that it should be done. An idea that the first Shabbos after a woman has a baby, the husband lights the candles. So I would say lamaisa lahefek. Bisman azeh, women wants to light the candles. She'll add on an extra candle, like we spoke about in the last year. The minhag is to light a candle per child, but there is this minhag that's quoted. So maybe it originally came from the fact that sometimes women were weak, they couldn't get out of bed, so they didn't want to embarrass women that could get out of bed, couldn't get out of bed. So the husband lights the candles the first Shabbos after the birth. But I once saw a pshat that no, maybe the idea is this. What's the reason the woman lights the candles? Because she is the one that has to be misakein and bring light into the world based on what Chava did. This woman just brought so much light into the world this week. She brought a child into the world this week. She doesn't have to do any more tikkunim. So now it goes back to the husband. Okay, but either way, that is a nice minute to talk about, but one does not have to fulfill it. And if the woman wants to light the candles, as we'll see, it is her choice. That is number one. Why does the woman get to light the candles? Why is the chiyuv upon her? Because of Chava. The second idea is quoted from the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchot Shabbos, you have it there at source number 3. On page 112, the Rambam says, why? V'nashim mitzuvos al davar zeh yosim ino anashim. Lefi shehein mitzuyos bebeisam. Because they are found in the house. V'hein ha'oskos asukos b'maleches habayis. And they are involved in the work of the house. So you might say this just means that they're involved in the candles are about making sure the house is light, as we spoke about last time. So they're involved in all the needs of the house. So she does this. I think maybe it's a little more fundamental. The woman is the one that creates the environment of the house, right? The Torah Simecha, the whole Akaris Habayis. It's all about her. And candles are about the bias. And that's why women throughout history, Ada Yom Hazeh, they're the ones that create the ambiance, that create the atmosphere in the house. And therefore, the Rambam says, they're Mitzuyas Babayis, therefore they're the ones. So that's the two days in the Rishonim, based on earlier sources, why women light the candles. And the Shulchan Aruch quotes this in Reish Samach Gimel Sef Gimel, Hanashim Musharas Bo Yoser. Musharas Bo means they do it. Doesn't mean that they have any more of an obligation. Meaning men and women, they're the ones that do it. They're the ones that light. The Shulchan Aruch quotes the Rambam. We paskin that even if 1 week, what happens if the husband comes home and says, I want to light the candles this week. I'm really in the mood. Guess what? Tough luck on him. The woman has the right. It's her mitzvah. It's both of their mitzvahs, but the minhag of Klal Yisrael for many, many hundreds of years, many centuries, is that it is the woman's option. The Mishnah Berurah summarizes, "Va'afilu im yirtza habal lahadlik ba'atzmo." In the Reish Samach Gimel, which is the siman about halakas neiros, even if the man wants to light himself, Aisha kodemes, she lights. Im lo sheyish harba neiros yachol hu gamkin lahadlik. She wants to give him some extra ones to light. Okay, she could be mochelas, but really it is up to her. So that is the married woman lights the candles. What about single women? So there are different minhagim about single women. The Shmir Shabbos quotes that there are those that have the minhag of the younger girls lighting. The Shmir Shabbos says in Siman Mem Gimel, source number 6, you have it there. Yesh noagim shakal habano shebabayis shehigiu lechinach madlikas neira Shabbos. Once they're higiu lechinach, just like other mitzvahs. We buy a lulav and esrog sometimes for children when they're 6 and 7 and 8 years old, right? We making kiddush, those houses, those families. We'll talk about this, B'ez Hashem. Better for one person to make kiddush or all, but there are those that children make kiddush. So the women like candles, the girls like candles. Besides the ones that the mother lights, and some even make a bracha. The Shmir Shabbos advises that if there are girls that are lighting, it's good to do it in a different place. We spoke about in the last year about whether one is allowed to light where there's no hosafas, or we mentioned at the end Lamaisa, all candles add ambiance. We spoke about lighting in hotels. But Ukshanovim Ken, the Shmir Shabbos says, Tov shekol bas tadlik b'cheder acher is better if everybody lights in a different room. That is not the general custom. Basically, everybody lights in the same place, in the dining room, with the candles next to each other. Rav Simcha Bunim Cohen in the Radiance of Shabbos quotes the Lubavitcher Rebbe as is famously urged all girls over 3 years old to light the candles. The Ad Rabbi Lubavitch Tikein shekol bas shel gimel shanim ulamala badlekas. He doesn't say anything about where to light and whether one makes a bracha. Again, the minhag is mostly to make a bracha. Rav Ovadia is not supportive of the minhag. Rav Ovadia in Yechav Das for Sfardim, Chelik Beis Siman Lamed Beis, it says in source number 8, Me'ikar halacha ein kol chov alabanos. Haravakos, the single women have no obligation that they live in the house. Hasmucha lo shochan aran, they're inside, they're home. Lahalik neira Shabbos. Me olam lo nagu benos hasfardim ve'edos hamizrach lasos kein. This is not a Sephardic custom. Single girls do not light candles. If they want to, it's usher to make a bracha. They want to. Generally, Sephardim, many totally different areas of halacha, they don't make brachas. Mitzvah about grama, the Shulchan Aruch passes there's no bracha. Brachas on a minhag, right? Women don't make a bracha on Sephardim don't make a bracha on Halal on Rosh Chodesh because it's a minhag, and Ashkenazim do. So generally, Sephardim often are more hesitant in halacha in terms of making brachas, which is interesting because in terms of saying Shem Hashem in outside of brachas, so sometimes we find you don't even need a whole pasuk, and sometimes Sephardic custom is to say Shem Hashem in a context, not just for no reason, but in a context of a Dvar Torah or so. But anyway, Yechav Das, Rav Ovadia says here, the women, the girls, the young girls lighting, if they're going to light, they shouldn't light. There's no reason for them to light. But if they do light, there is no bracha. So to summarize the Prinei Halacha, Rabbi Lamed writes in source number 9, Yesh Nogim, Shebenosaf L'Neir She'em Adlika, Kol Benoseh Shegil L'Chinech Ba'Lekes, some light, and so is the minhag of Chasidei Chabad, Ulam Das Rova Poskim, Sherakim HaMishpacha Madzlaka, Neiros V'chei Nogim, Kechol Shar Kilos Yisrael. Everybody should follow their custom. If this is not your family custom, not such an idea to light. So that's the basic halacha about a women lighting and the girls lighting. What happens if somebody's away from home? So all of a sudden, there's a man who's in a separate, away from his family on Shabbos. So what exactly is the halacha in terms of lighting? So fascinatingly, there are some Rishonim that compare this context to Hanukkah. And that will have ramifications. The Gemara Masechah Shabbos tells us on Daf Chav Gimel, you have it there, source number 10, Amar Rav Sheshes, Achsanoi chayiv b'ner Chanukah, a guest is chayiv in ner Chanukah. Amar Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Zera says, a guest meaning if I go away, I still have to light ner Chanukah wherever I am. Amar Rabbi Zera, Meireish ki avina be'Rav. Rabbi Zera says when I originally was in Rav, an early Amora. When I was at Rav's in the base Rav, mishtatafana beprite b'hadiush biza. I used to give some money. To the host. I was mishtatif bepruta, as it's called. I give a couple of cents, give a couple of agurot to the host, and then I'm yotze with their lighting Chanukah. Basar denesivi itza, but once I got married, Reb Zera said, Amina, hashtavad lo tzurichna, I don't have to give any more. Why? My wife is lighting for me. So I don't have to light. So that's the concept of Mishtatif Bepruta. It only appears in Shas by Neris Chanukah. Says the Ravya, one of the Rishonim, Ashkenaz Rishonim, Vikarav Adar Beinai, source number 11, the Ravya, Simen Kuf Sadites, Vikarav Adar Beinai, this is him talking, this is not based on Chazal. Tachsanoi Mishtatif Bepriti l'ner shel Shabbos, kamo l'ner shel Chanukah. Im lo shemalika l'lebago beisei. Unless somebody's riding, you're not being yotze with somebody in the house. If somebody's lighting in my house, my wife, fine. But what if I'm single and there's nobody lighting in my house and I'm staying at a guest? I should be mishtati bepruta. I should add. That is quoted here in the Ravya. Additionally, and we'll see this is quoted in Shulchan Aruch. Additionally, other Chachmei Ashkenaz, the Maharami Rutenberg, quoted in the Mordechai. The Maharami Rutenberg was the Rebbe of many of the great Rishonim of Ashkenaz. We know there were four different worlds of the Rishonim in the different countries. Right, we have the France, we have Rashi and all the Baalei Atosfos. We have Svarad, the Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran, Tashbates, a little bit, but Rivash. Right, so that's all the Chachmei Svarad, Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran. The Ra'ah is in there. And then we have Provence, which is southern France, the Ravid and the Balamor and the Hashlama and the Meiri. And then we also have Chachmei Ashkenaz, the Mordechai and the Marami Rutenberg and the Rav Yavachulu. The Marami Rutenberg was the Rebbe of the Mordechai and the Rosh Vachulu. The Mordechai, the Marami Rutenberg, they were all there together, but then there was terrible pogroms. The Mordechai and the and Hagos Maimonides, I think, were both killed. The Marami Rutenberg was taken to jail. He was in jail for 7 years. He died in jail eventually. A whole discussion about Pinyin Shvuyim. The Rush ran away. The Rush went to Spain. Right? He was in Ashkenaz and he went to Spain. Okay, he was in France and he went to Spain. Okay, so anyway, so with that background, the Ravya says that Hilchos Shabbos are parallel to Hilchos Chanukah in terms of Mishtatif Bepruta. If nobody's lighting for you at home, then you have to be Mishtatif. You have to give some money. The Mordechai writes, quoting from his Rebbe, the Marami Rutenberg, Bachurim aholchim lo modchos labeisam. Boys who are going to learn, they're going to yeshiva outside their city. Srichen lahalik ner shel Shabbos bechedram. If they have a separate place where they live, they have a chiyuv to light there. Ulevarech alav. Why? Mishum da'alakas ner b'Shabbos chova. They're not home, and they have a chiyuv to have light. Remember, we learned in the last year. Shalom bayis, you have to have light. Shalom bayis doesn't only mean for other people, for yourself, to not bang your foot and get hurt. So you have a chiyuv, you have no light in the room, says the Mordechai, you have a chiyuv to light there. Mishum shalom bayis, le'ikashal beitzu be'evan. Avo mishu eitzel ishto, but if he's with his wife, ain't zorach lahavlik bechedro. If he's with his wife, then even if he's in a separate room, no lighting. You're yotze with the wife's lighting. Interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch quotes both of these. Again, we're going to see Lamaisa, what we hold. But the Shulchan Aruch quotes both of these. The Siman Reis Lama Gimel, again, the Siman about Halakas Nerot. The Shulchan Aruch first quotes the Mordechai, B'Shem the Maharam, Bachurim ha'ochim lo modchutz labeisam. Boys who go learn somewhere away from their homes, they have to like if they have a separate area. Avamishu eitzel ishto ein tzorach lahalik bechedro. Somebody who's with his wife, he's married, he doesn't have to. Because the wife is lighting for him. And then he quotes, right? right? The concept of Shtati Bepruta, which again only appears in Shas regarding Hanukkah, appears in the Ravya and in the Shulchan Aruch. Good. So let's talk about some of these Lamaisa elements. The Mishnah Berurah and the Bir Halacha expand on these ideas about whether there's really a chiyuv if somebody goes away. We'll get to a dormitory soon, but the Mishnah Berurah says, who are these bachurim? Who are these bachurim that have to lie? It says the Mishnah Berurah, Sifkat and Chavches, you have it there at source 14. Hainu, sheyesh lam nashim, even if they're married, el shaholchin chutz lebeisam, and even if their wife is lighting at home, but if they have a separate area where they are living, let's say, I don't know, somebody goes to a hotel, they're in a hotel for Shabbos, they have a separate area, there's a chiyuv to light in the hotel, even if their wife's lighting at home. There's what we might call in Lumdis, there's a chovas gavra, which might be fulfilled by the wife, but then there's a chovas habayis where you are. And therefore, if there's no light where you are, then you have a chiyuv to light. Again, it gets into, could you be yotze with the electric lights? We spoke about that last week. Surely, if you're not married, then you have a chiyuv. And the Bir Halacha also gives background, and then we'll see the Lamaisa in the Shmir Shabbos. The Bir Halacha says, if you're at home and your wife is lighting, and then you're going to put some lights on in the other rooms, then you're yotze with her bracha, just like B'dikas Chametz, says the Bir Halacha. B'dikas Chametz, one person makes a bracha in one place, and all the other lighting is yotze, all the other checking is yotze. To mevarach b'makom echad, v'yasmach zehu bodek kol hachadarim. Ma she'en kenim hu einenu bebeso. If I'm in a different place, in a different house, I don't need the bracha, then I don't have to light. And therefore, says the Bir Halacha, says the Mishnah Berurah, based on all these Shulchan Aruchs, right? To summarize, if somebody is at home, then the wife is, and they're married, then the wife lights. If somebody is away from home and they are have their own place, then they have chiyuv to light there. If they don't have their own place, so then technically their wife is yotze, and then there's a chovas hagavra that's taken care of, a chovas bayis. The Ravya does quote this idea, which the Shulchan Aruch quotes, of mishtatif bepruta, but again, as we'll see, that is not the common custom. The Shmir Shabbos then summarizes in source number 16 in Siman Memhei. Again, all the assays of Shabbos are Shmir Shabbos Chelik Beis. Chelik Aleph is all of the many of the malachos, which B'ez Hashem we'll get to, but this is now in Chelik Beis. The Shmir Shabbos says in Perek Memhei Sif Os Gimel, Isha hamadlika ner Shabbos b'chader ochel, a woman who's lighting candles in the dining room, motzia balakasa gamas b'nei abayis akvuim, she'ein nimtzam b'bayis b'shabbazu. She could be yotze, her whole family, even if they're not there right now, even if they're not in the house, they're not found in the house for Shabbos. Kegon, kasher abal nimsa be'ir acheres, the husband is in a different city, b'shirat tzva'i, he's in miluim, o bebeit cholim, or in the hospital, v'im b'nei habayis ha'ela, she'enam nimsa bebayis, ochle b'vakan shemalika boner Shabbos, if they, the husband, the family members, are in a different house, that they're also lighting. And v'gam yishor b'cheder shebo in lanim, and there's enough light in the place where they're sleeping. Let's say they have their own private bedroom, but there's a hall light on, there's a bathroom light on. So they're okay where they are. Mitzad the Shalom Bay is not banging themselves, and the wife is lighting at home. So then says the Shmir Shabbos, no, they don't have to light, and they don't have to be Mishati B'Pruta. They're done. They're covered. But says the Shmir Shabbos, but if they're in a place where there is no light. There is no light. That's what the Ravya and the Mordechai were talking about. They were talking about Mitzias where you are, you have no light. So then you have to do something, either light yourself or be mishtati for the pruta, so the light of the host can work for you. And you have to benefit from that light, as we mentioned in the last year. What about a woman? This is all if the husband or the sons or any other family members are away. What about if the woman is away? The woman is out. Isha Nesua, a married woman who's in the hospital. Let's say she just had a baby. Oh, Yoledes and says bebeit havra'ah. Mikiva shabale and malikin aneres b'Shabbos. The husband is really lighting for her at home, so technically she has enough light where she is. The husband's lighting at home. She has no chiyuv to light. But the Shmir Shabbos notes the minhag is for the women, married women, to light candles. Doesn't matter if they're not home; they don't need to. That's the minhag. And she makes a bracha on that. That is the minhag, and we don't argue with this minhag of Klal Yisrael that has been going on for thousands of years, and nobody has been potzeh peh. Nobody has argued about it. Good. So what about a related case? What about a dormitory? What about a dormitory? Right? If many boys go to a dorm, what kind of lighting needs? That's the question of Rav Sternbach asked in Shuvas Vanhagos. You have in there source 18. He asked the question on page 118 now. V'nisboni nachshav. Mawadin biben yeshiva. Shalomed ochel v'yashem yeshiva. Right? He eats, drinks, sleeps, breathes. Heichu yotze takanas chazal. What does he do about Halachot Ner Shabbos? Sheba Hadlakat sahorim bebeisov adeno yotze. The parents are lighting in the home. It might even be a different time zone. Right? They're lighting it. He's in Eretz Yisrael. They're in Chutz La'aretz. Sharak beishto mahani mishum ishto kagufo. Ishto kagufo works, but what about in this case? So what do? So Rav Ovadia and Chazon Ovadia and Hilchot Shabbos says, okay, they should light. They should light as long as there is no, which is a hard thing to know in our day and age, and they have to follow the rules of the yeshiva. Technically, they should light. If there's any type of fire danger, then pikuach nefesh is doche. But theoretically, Rav Ovadia writes, Bachurim pinuyim, source 19, she'ein lahem isha, she'nimtzaim b'yeshivas. They're in yeshiva. V'yesh lam cheder nifrad. She'kol echad yesh bo shnayim bo shlosha bachurim. There's a dorm, 3 or 4 boys in every room. Even if there's a public lighting in the dining room, chova ala bachurim sheyesh lam cheder miyuchad lahalik neris Shabbos bibracha. So Rav Ovadia says that the boys in the dorm have to light with a bracha. That is not the minhag ha'olam. That is not what most do. Ashkenazi boys for sure. The question is, so what is the eitzah? What is the eitzah? So if one wants to be Yotze a little bit like Rav Ovadia, the Piskei Teshuvos has a summary. Piskei Teshuvos has a summary. He says, so what do? He says, either they could be mishtate bepruta. They could give money to the person that's lighting in the Chader Ochel, number 1. Or number 2, they could light. Or maybe they could even turn on a light in their room, l'shem Hadlakas Neris. That's what Soposkim say we spoke about last week, by a hotel, right? It could be that if you want to have a light in Makom Yuchad, you turn the bathroom light on in the hotel, and then you go down to the lobby and you light, and it's all part of the larger lighting. It's all part of the mitzvah. So one can have that in mind. But some don't do any of this. Many boys are in the dorm. Many girls are in seminaries, they don't do any of it. Why? So it seems that the minhag is that when you're in a dorm, you're part of one big happy family. You're part of the yeshiva family. And if you're part of the yeshiva family, so then that's it. You're covered by the one lighting in the dining room, just like a woman, a mother, lights the candles in the dining room, and that covers all the members of the house and all the lights that are on. It's all covered. So the yesh miyashvim es hanog b'harbi yeshivas at the end of source 20, right there. This is the defense. She'ena b'churim adlikin. Nobody lights and nobody gives money. Why? Habachurim shesmuchan al shulchan balabayis shel yeshiva umikivan shemitam balabayis madlikin. Since they're part of the balabayis, they're part of the yeshiva. Yotzim bazeh. Even if they're sleeping in a different place, and especially if the hall lights are on, so you don't even really have a cheder miyuchad. There's no light on the cheder miyuchad. You just use the hall light. So then there's really no cheder miyuchad. There's no chiyuv to be lighting in that spot as well. Adkan, lighting for yourself wherever you are. There is a beautiful discussion in Lumdis. Again, it's Lamaisa too, but there's a lot of Lumdis here, and that is what happens if it is very late, and now it's after Shkia, and you can't light, right? The poskim talk about they used to have weddings on Friday, right? It was a common in Israel. You have it once in a while. They say Rav Shlomo Zalman got married on Purim Friday because he had no money, so they used a triple reason for the Suda. Shabbos, Purim, wedding was all one big Suda. So it was a wedding on a Friday, and they were running late, and it got back, and it was already Shkia. So the Remeir ben Baruch Halevi of Vienna, it's quoted in the Maggid Avram. The Maggid Avram in our Simon Reis Hamagimel quotes, you could ask a non-Jew, after Shkia, a Jew can't do malacha, suffix skila, right? So you could ask a non-Jew to light, and a Jew can make the bracha on the non-Jew's lighting. That is what is quoted in the Maggid Avram. And the Maggid Avram quotes this and says, wow, there are a couple of chidushim. Number 1, v'tamuahi. Number 1, could you make a bracha on candles that are lit? Right? What's behind that question? A berachas HaMitzvah is always connected to a Maisa HaMitzvah. By Bris Milah, The Moel makes the Birchas HaMitzvah of Al HaMilah. The father says Lachlisa Berisa Shalom Ravinu, which is a Birchas HaShevach or a Birchas different kind of Birchas HaMitzvah, but you need a Maisa Mitzvah. Somebody, Kovea Mezuzah, who makes the bracha? The one who's being Kovea the Mezuzah. So to make a bracha on candles that are lit by a guy, that is very, very unusual. Number one. Number two, ask the Magen Avraham, V'od Amir Lakem Shvus, there's an Issa D'Rabbanan to ask a non-Jew to do malacha for me on Shabbos. So that one is not so bad, says the Magen Avraham, to answer his own question, because we paskin Amir La'akim B'Bakim Ben Hashmashos is okay. It's not Shabbos yet, right? It's Ben Hashmashos, Lo Gazru, so Amir La'akim at a twilight, in this in-between time, that is still okay. But the first question, Rabbi Kiva Eger asks another question. Rabbi Kiva Eger on Shulchan Aruch, there in Reis Gimel, he says, where does this minhag come from? Yesh shlichus l'gai. Shlichus is learned after the beginning of the second paragraph of Maseches Kedushin. You learn out from V'shalach v'shilcha makaros. Ein shlichus l'gai. He's mufka. He's not betoras this mitzvah. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger. Lani is daiti gamal idach takana shetomar l'gai lahadlikasha. I don't understand how this works. Kivan dein shlichus l'nachrihi eina madlekes ve'ech tevarech v'yo'ikar. You know what you should do? Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, if you know you're going to get back late, light beforehand and make it tonight. Yichol lahasnos al kol tzad letzarach v'tad lekodem v'tasa. Make some type of tonight. That this will be, again, it has to be after Plaga Mincha. You can't light before Plaga Mincha. But the Rabbi Kiva Eger, that's what you should do. But what's the lumdus? How do you defend this practice? All these kashas are very strong. So you have to explain, and this is how the Achronim explain the Machane Ephraim. You have the Machane Ephraim in front of you in the last source in this section, in source 23. Machane Ephraim is an early Achron, around the time of the Beis Yosef, Hilchas Shluchin V'Shutfin, many Choshe Mishpat Sugyas. So the Machane Ephraim discusses, there are some mitzvos that are Maiso-oriented, there are some mitzvos that are result-oriented. If I'm walking to the Kalim mikvah to tovel something and I trip and the kli goes flying and it goes into the mikvah and it's all under the water, I'm yotzei. I'm tovel. It's in the mikvah. It's a result-oriented mitzvah. What could a guy be tovel for me if I'm watching them? So if I see it go in the water, it goes in the water. Tfilas Kalim is result-oriented. The Machane Ephraim compares this to ma'akeh. Ma'akeh, putting up a fence. Is there a Maisa mitzvah bo yosmi b'shlucha to put at the makeh? Pashtus not. Pashtus, it is just result-oriented. Bring about the mitzvah of a safe environment on the roof. So it seems to be that this halacha of the Maharam that's quoted in the Magen Avraham, he's holding that Halakas Neros is about the result. And if it's about the result, however you achieve the result, you can make a bracha on that. You can make a bracha. It's not a din of shlichus of a guy. Right, shlichus of a guy is when you need a maisa hamitzvah performed, and a guy is mufkad, a guy is excluded from being a shliach. But if it's just about achieving a result, so then even a guy could do it, because it's not something that you need shlichus for. You just need the result to be done, and therefore you'd be able to make a bracha on that. So a number of chidushim. Number one, that it's a result-oriented mitzvah. Number two, that you can make a bracha on that result-oriented mitzvah. So all of these are mechudash and achita, but that's what's quoted here in Hilchos Halakas Neros. So to read you one line of the Machane Ephraim, Avo b'midi de lo boi shlichus. That doesn't need shlichus. Ubalav achi yochel chaver lasoso. And without it, the friend can do it. Masha asa asu. Iko nido di don. Di tikin maka shal chaver shalom idaito. If the friend put up your makkah without asking, how he's a shopper, I fulfilled my mitzvah and tfilas kalim. So this is connected to Hadlakas Neros also. So this is all a little bit relating to Hadlakas Neros Shabbos, and we still have to talk about right now about how to light, when to make the brachas. That relates to the following, as we are about to see. When does one accept Shabbos? So a man doesn't like candles. So when does a man accept Shabbos? Again, once Shkia comes, it's not a question of you're accepting Shabbos. It's Shabbos, right? You can't say it's Shabbos over there, it's Shabbos over there. It wasn't Shabbos here. No, it's Shabbos once Shkia comes. Our minhag is to light candles 18 minutes before, 20 minutes before. Maybe we'll get to that in a future week, why we pick that time, but we don't want to get even close to the suffix. So a man, when is a man Makabel Shabbos? Hopefully, if he davens mincha before Shkia, and he starts being Makabel Shabbos, whether it's the Kabbalah Shabbos or Lechadodi or Mizbar Shir, but sometime during Tefillah. But what about a woman? A woman's lighting candles. So this is known as the famous machlokas between the Bahag and other Rishonim. It's famous. If you know it, we'll try to make it famous right now. The Bahag, the Baal Halachas Gedolos, one of the Gaonim before the Rishonim. So the Bahag is quoted in Hilchos Chanukah, interestingly enough. In Hilchos Chanukah, the Bahag says, what is this doing in Hilchos Chanukah? Because the Bahag is discussing what on Friday afternoon, Shabbos Chanukah, what do you light first? Chanukah candles or Shabbos candles? Says the Bahag, now in source 24 in Siman Tes, page 123. If you have Ner Chanukah and Ner Shabbos, what do you do first? Bereisha Madlik to Chanukah. V'hadar Madlik to Shabbos, first Chanukah candles and then Shabbos candles. Why? What's the difference? Light Shabbos candles then Chanukah? No. The Adlik to Shabbos Bereisha Itzer Leila Luke to Chanukah. Once you light Shabbos candles, it's Shabbos. And you can't light Hanukkah candles anymore. Mishum to Kibla l'Shabbos alei. Shabbos has already been accepted. The Bahag holds lighting candles is, or maybe even not lighting candles, maybe you've seen the bracha of lighting Ner Shel Shabbos, but something in the process is an automatic Kabbalah's Shabbos. And the other Rishonim, the Ramban, strongly disagrees. The Ramban in Masechah Shabbos, Daf Chav Gimel, says no, it's not true. Halakas Neir Shabbos, that takana was done for pre-Shabbos. V'kamahu rachok ze'atam, says the Ramban. I don't agree. Im amru b'yom HaKippurim kain. Fine, on Yom Kippur, maybe we say that. B'shamar zman, mishum demosifin, michol ala kodesh. Because you're mosif michol ala kodesh when you are saying the words of Lahadlik Ner Shel Yom Kippur. V'yoch little poskim ibod yom, and you don't eat going into the night. V'yochel lahafsik l'kabbalah, shlo yochem ibod yom. When you say on Yontif, or specifically Yom Kippur, the Ramban talks about, then I understand that's a Kabbalah. If you light Shabbos candles an hour before Shabbos, why is that a Kabbalah? Let's say you don't want things to get, things are going to get busy. You don't want to mess up. You want to make sure that the malachos daraisa that are done way before Shkia. So you're going to light candles. Im kain hidlik ner shel Shabbos lo yadlik ner acheres. Adarabba, says the Ramban in a great line, Lo mipnei shehu Shabbos hu madlik, ele mipnei she'adayin eino Shabbos madlik. You're not lighting because it's Shabbos, you're lighting because it's not Shabbos. Right? That's the Ramban. And therefore, the Ramban argues with the Bahag. There is no Kabbalah Shabbos automatically. And the Ramban even proves it from the Gemara in Masechah Shabbos that talks about certain, they used to blow certain trumpets or kolos or shofars to tell people to get ready for Shabbos, and it's almost Shabbos, and after Halachas Neiros, they seem to still be doing some halachas. This is a machlokas between the Bahag and the Ramban, the Bahag against most Rishonim. Do we say there's an automatic acceptance? So the Shulchan Aruch quotes both opinions. The Shulchan Aruch quotes both opinions. Within the Bahag, though, the Shulchan Aruch adds a machlokas. Within the Bahag, that it is an automatic acceptance, can one make a t'nai? Can one make a condition that I don't want to be Makabel Shabbos? So it's unbelievable. It might be so powerful that you can't even make a t'nai. It's an automatic Kabbalah Shabbos. It's like, just like you can't make a t'nai when it's Shabbos, you can't make a t'nai maybe when, even if you're Makabel Shabbos automatically. So that's 2 days within the Bahag. But then there are some Rishonim, as we just said, the Ramban, there's no acceptance. You don't even have to make it tonight. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Reis Lamed Gimel Sif Yud, source number 26. Lo Bahag, Kivan Shidlik Ner Shel Shabbos, Chal Alav Shabbos V'Neser B'Malacha. Once you light Shabbos candles, that's it. It's over. V'Yaf Al Pizeh Noagos Ksas Nashim. And that is why, if there's a, right when you light, that's why some women even, after you light the candles, you still have the match in your hand. What do you mean it's Shabbos? I lit the Shabbos candles. You have to drop the match, right? You can't even blow it out. That's an added. That's saying that the lighting, not just the bracha. They just throw the wick to the floor. So you don't blow it out. So then it goes out memela. V'yesh omrim shemasne kodem shehidlika she'ena makabel Shabbos at sheyomer achazim baruchu moil. Some say she can make a t'nai that I'm not being makabel Shabbos. V'yesh omrim she'ena mo ba. Some say you can't make a t'nai. Can't make it. So 2 days within the Bahag. But then the Shulchan Aruch quotes V'yesh chokin al das abdal Bahag. Some say, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a Kabbalah. Ein Kabbalah Shabbos Tali Badlokas Haner Ela Betfilas Arvis. It's nothing to do with Hadlakas Ner Shabbos. It has to do with Ma'ariv or Baruch Hu. Hakol Parshim Malachta later on. And therefore, Uladidan Kivan Sheslicha Mizvah Shilam Shabbos Havi Kabarchlu to do. Remember, when do Avelim come into the shul? Rachmanos on somebody sitting Shiva. They come in at the end of Kabbalah Shabbos, right? By L'chadodi Mizmar Shiur, because that's the Kabbalah Shabbos of the Tzibur. Says the Ramban. Soter for women. Soter for women. That's the Kabbalah Shabbos. So what do we paskin? So the Ramah says the minhag is like the Bahag. And that's why often when women light candles, if there's still something to do in the house, they could ask somebody, turn off the oven, do this, do that, because we paskin that if somebody was Makabel Shabbos, it is mutter l'chadchila to tell somebody who was not Makabel Shabbos yet to do malacha. Like if, let's say, one family makes early Shabbos, and they forgot to do something, they could go next door to get the family that's making late Shabbos to turn something off. That is mutter l'chadchila. So that's what the minhag is. The Ramah says, ha-minhag she'osa isha madlekas, the woman is Makabel Shabbos, but not for her family, though the Ramah says a Tanai would help. Va'afilu b'Tanai b'leiv sagi, a Tanai would help. So that is the Ramah. What about the Shulchan Aruch? So some achrodim, the Menuchas Ahava, Moshe Levi, says that rules for the Shulchan Aruch, when he quotes a Deya and then says V'yesh Chokim, he passes like the second Deya. So that is why here, the Shulchan Aruch Me'ikar Adin would be passing like the Ramban. It's not an automatic Kabbalah. It's not an automatic Kabbalah, and we'll see that's what Sfardim, many of them hold today. It's not an automatic Kabbalah. The Ramah says it is, unless there is a Tanai. So what does a Tanai mean? You can make a Tanai. You can always make a Tanai. The Maggid Avram says you should only make a Tanai Litzarach. For Ashkenazic women who accept Shabbos automatically with their lighting, they can make a Tanai. The Maggid Avram says, if there is a Tzorach, if there is a need. Since there's some that say a Tanai can't work, so we don't paskin that way, Me'ikar Adin, but one should try to be makpid, right? Unless it's a tzorach. What does it tzorach mean? What does it tzorach mean? Tzorach holy, fine. Tzorach, she's a weak. What does tzorach mean? So where does this come up? A woman wants to go to shul. She wants to go to the kotel. So could a woman drive to the kotel? She's in Yerushalayim and she's never in Yerushalayim. She wants to drive to the kotel. So that's a machlokas haposkim. Shlomo Zalman quoting the Shmir Shabbos says, I don't know what kind of tzorach that is. You could dive in here, you could dive in there. Driving to the kotel is such a tzarech. But the Tzitz Eliezer, Rav Waldenberg, the great posek from Yerushalayim, from Ramot, says, yes, that's a tzarech. If she wants to go to the kotel. V'im Kain, says the Tzitz Eliezer, Im alicha leiza chuppah ba'ir, to go to a wedding, right? That was what the earlier poskim spoke about. Mikosh gave a kavachomer, sheish lomer shehalicha lekosel ma'aravi, nikra letzarech. And she can make it tonight. Where does this come up also? Yom Kippur. Sometimes women want to go in the car for Kol Nidre. So again, generally halacha l'maisa, the poskim say once or twice a year. That's okay. If there's a tzarech for that. If there's a simcha on the other side of town, you want to walk back. That's a tzarech. That's what the minhag loves to be mekel. Because again, remember, some poskim say it's not an automatic kabbalah, and others say that the Tanai works. So we're being machmer l'chadchila. To be makber for the din that it's an automatic kabbalah and the Tanai doesn't work. So if there is a tzarech, if there's a good reason for it, then one can rely on this. Okay. Based on this, though, and this is important, based on this, though, has to do with, okay, what about the bracha? Usually we have a concept called a bracha is over la'asiyasan. We make a bracha before we light the candles. Before we do a mitzvah, before we shake a lulav, we make a bracha. Well, lulav is also a little tricky. By some mitzvahs, it's simple. You make the bracha and then you blow the shofar. You make the bracha and then you eat the matzah. But certain mitzvahs are a little tricky because you don't want to do it too early, you don't want to do it too late. I just gave the example of lulav. That wasn't a good example because the Rishonim discussed. The second that I pick up the daled minim, I'm yotzei my mitzvah. Mita agbe nafek bei. So I should make the bracha when I'm not holding it yet. That might be what's called over to over. It's too early. So by lulav, you work out. There are 4 different opinions in Bali Atosfos what you're supposed to do. The most common minhag is you hold the esrog upside down because you only yotzei with the daled minim, holding it the way that it grows. Keder kedei lasan. But here by Kabbalas Ner Shabbos, you have another problem. Right? Why? Because if we're makbid that there's an automatic Kabbalah when I light the candles, or for sure when I say the bracha of Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos, so I can't say Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos and light the candles. Because once I say Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos, it's Shabbos. So what do I do? So says the Ma'arivail. Ma'arivail is an late Rishon, 1400s. The Ma'arivail in source 32. Mixas nashim noagim shemadlikin aneres v'acharkach masimin yedeim prusas neged aneres. They light the candles, then they quickly cover their eyes as if not to get any hana'ah from the candles. So it's as if it wasn't lit yet. v'az mevarchin, and then they make the bracha, v'achar kach mesalkin yadayim, and then they remove their hands and look at the candles. Women should remember to look at the candles afterwards, because that's the hana'ah, right? So it's ke'ilah they didn't light. They can't do it the normal overlas yasan, because the second that you say the words La'al Nir Shel Shabbos, you're yotzei. So that's why, what do women do? They light the candles, they cover their eyes. I'm not sure what, going around and around is, I'm not sure where that comes from. But at least covering the eyes, and then having special tefillos at that time. It's a special Eis Ratzon to daven at that time. So, but then opening up their eyes and then looking at the candles. So that is the minhag that's quoted in the Ramah. It's quoted in the Ramah to do that. Again, the Ramah Lashitasa that says that one should be makbid for the Lachadchila, for the Shita of the Bahag, that it's an automatic Kabbalah. So that's why Ashkenazic women do this. The Ben Ish Chai writes that this should also be the custom of the Sephardic poskim, but Rav Ovadia is not a fan of that. Rav Ovadia says in Chelik Beis Siman Tezayin of Arachayim and Yabia Omer, no. We paskin like the second day of the Shulchan Aruch, like the Ramban, that it's not an automatic Kabbalah, and therefore do straight like all other mitzvahs over Lasiyasan, says the Rav Ovadia. For Sephardic custom, in source 34 now, Mikol Makom Mivar Sham She'ein Kabbalah Shabbos Tuluya Ela Bahadlaka V'lo Bebracha. The Kabbalah is not the bracha. The Kabbalah is in the hadlaka, the lighting, not the words. V'lachein lo hevi maran sal zvar zu kol iker. V'achimucha midivri kol poskim, says Rav Ovadia shemavar kodem sheyadlik. Should make the bracha beforehand. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't quote that you flip it. Only the Ramah does. V'hilkach anan de guarina basar piskei maranzal, says Rav Ovadia, we follow the Shulchan Aruch. Lo chayshina l'svar zu klal. De pshita to adiv tfei lavarach over lasiyasan mikamo b'shar mitzvahs. It's better to do over lasiyasan, like all mitzvahs. The importance of over lasiyasan. Bein nashim, men or women, right, should do this, right? And adobe mishana, and even if it's your minhag, says the Rav Ovadia, to do this flip. If you're a Sephardi woman, switch back. Switch back. If you light like the Ashkenazic women, Rav Ovadia says, be mishana the minhag. Go back to what the Shulchan Aruch says. First, make the bracha, and then light. So that's Rav Ovadia's crucial shita for the Sephardi women. The Aruch HaShulchan says even if one is makbid, one doesn't have to worry about the match. That's an extra chumrah al gabi chumrah. One doesn't have to worry about it. A couple of the other important points. Number one, even the Ramah quotes the minhag of the automatic acceptance. The poskim say that's only for women and not for men. So if a man ever has to light candles, so then a man could just do, let's say the wife's away, the husband's lighting at home, so then the man says the bracha and then lights the candles. Why? Because there's an automatic assumption the man's going to go daven mincha. A woman also has a chiyuv to daven mincha, according to many poskim. So women should daven mincha l'chadchila before they light the candles. Again, if it's gonna get close to Shkia, light the candles. Have in your mind it's night that I'm going to daven mincha afterwards. But a man makes the bracha and then lights the candles. That is what's done Meikar Adin. I remember years ago, we were in camp one summer. We go to camp every summer. So years ago, probably about 15 years ago, my wife went back to Israel a week early. So I was busy lighting the candles, and my daughter was pretty young at the time. So she sees me lighting the candles. She says, Abba, you did it wrong. I said, what are you talking about? She's like, no, first you're supposed to light the candles, and then you cover your eyes, and then you... I'm like, excellent question. Excellent. But I'm a man and not a woman, and therefore get to have the whole discussion of whether there is an automatic Kabbalah or not in this regard. A couple of other points relating. First, regarding specifically Halakas Nerot, and then we'll talk about over Lasiyasan in general. There are two other discussions of the Achronim that you don't have the Makaros here in your Sefer, but I'll mention a few. First of all, what about on Yantif? On Yantif, we know one is allowed to light or be Mosif Or. So is there any difference between lighting Shabbos candles and lighting Yantif candles? So that is a big discussion. The Madrisha, the mother of the Drisha. The Drisha, one of the classic commentaries on the Tur, in its Akdama to Yerodea, says, I want to tell you two chidushim from my mother. Number one, he says, what about lighting on Yantif? The whole svara that you can't do the Ramah because you have to light and then make the bracha and cover your eyes is only because of Shabbos. You can't light fire on Shabbos, but on Yantif you can be Mosif. So therefore it says the Madrisha, the mother of the Drisha, on Yantif, you should make the bracha first. And then light, like a regular Birchas HaMitzvah. That's what the Madrisha says. The Magen Avraham quotes this and says, it might be very hard. It might be very hard, especially if you have Yontif and Shabbos days in a row, one after the other. What am I doing today? And the woman might mess up. So Maggid Avraham says lo chilku chachamim, and therefore they don't have to. And he brings a raya from Netilas Yadayim, from Tevila, from Neiras Chanukah. Okay, and there's a Dogam Ervava, Rabbi Kiva, the Nod Bihud on the bottom of the Shulchan Aruch have a discussion back and forth. What should be done? Lamaisa, I would say, it's up to the women. It's up to the women. Ask the woman. If a woman thinks that she could, so to speak, handle it and say, this is what I'm going to do on Shabbos, this is what I'm going to do on Yontif. On Shabbos, I'm going to light and then make the, first I'm going to light and then make the bracha after, and I'm going to remember that on Yontif, I'm not going to get confused, then fine. But if a woman wants to do it the same way, it's fine. The Ramah Hilchos Yontif doesn't say anything. Doesn't say that maybe the Eimatrisha would say, because it's Pashut, because it's obviously you're allowed to light fire on Shabbos. But that is number one. There's another discussion of the poskim, which is actually fascinating if one analyzes it, and that is women have it was already alluded to a little bit earlier in the Ramban. Women have a custom on Yontif lighting to make the bracha of Shechiyanu with the lighting. That is nowhere in the Shulchan Aruch, that a woman makes the bracha of Shechiyanu with her lighting. We say Shechiyanu by Kiddush, but the bracha of Shechiyanu, it's nowhere in the Shulchan Aruch. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden, the Shelas Yavetz, it's important that Rabbi Yaakov Emden is the first one to bring this up. Whenever an Achron brings up a Chiddush, you have to ask, why didn't the other early Rishonim bring it up, and why weren't they upset about it if it's a Chiddush? So Rabbi Yaakov Emden says, I don't know why women are making this bracha of Shechiyanu. It's not Yontif yet. When they're lighting candles, they're saying Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. It's not lazman hazeh yet. So what? They should wait for Kiddush. They should wait for Kiddush to hear it from the men. The Shelas Yavetz, Rabbi Yaakov Emden says this in Chelik Aleph Simin Kuv Zayin. La'arer al minhag hanoshim hamavarcha Shechiyanu al halakas ner Yontif. He says, I don't understand. He says, Kasha v'chay miyom amdi al daiti. When I realized this, davar tamua be'enai. And then what he says, I told my wife to stop it. Guess what he says? She didn't listen. You don't mess around with Halakas Neiros of the women. You don't mess around. He couldn't even get his wife to change it. He says, I let her do it. It's not mamish bracha levatala. That's Rabbi Yaakov Emden. If you look at the Tzitz Eliezer says, Chas v'shalom. It's a beautiful minhag, and this is the women's connection to Yontif, and let him make the Shechiyanu. What's the problem? But again, the Mishnah Berurah, I think, quotes the Shelas Yavetz, but again, this is not an area where one should try to push. It's a beautiful custom, and as the Tzitz Eliezer says, this must have been going on for hundreds of years, and nobody ever said boo. Nobody ever said there's anything wrong with it. So women should continue, not even l'chadchila, should continue lighting with the Shechiyanu at that time. Again, on the Seder night, where women have their own kos in front of them, they shouldn't make another Shechiyanu. They shouldn't make another Shechiyanu before by Kiddush. They should start drinking right after Makadish Yisrael Vazmanim, and then the men still have to say the Shechiyanu. But again, that's that. Okay, one other point to mention in terms of general over Lasiyasan. Rav Soloveitchik has a beautiful idea. What is the importance? Like the Rav Avadia says, no, you should do it over Lasiyasan, right? Because there's an importance to it. We should generally try to make a Birchas HaMitzvah before we do the mitzvah, right? We try. So what's so important? Al pi machshava of over Lasiyasan. So Rav Soloveitchik was medayik in a Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Brachas. The Rambam tells us that there are three kinds of brachas that we know of. We have Birchas HaMitzvah, and Birchas Shevach V'Hodah, and Birchas HaNehenin. Right? Those are the three kinds of brachas that we have. And the Rambam says Birchas Shevach V'Hodah, the classic one is benching, as we know. And then the Rambam says there's a Birchas HaNehenin, before we eat, drink, or smell. And then the Rambam says there's a Birchas HaMitzvah. But the Rambam's Lashon, the Rambam is in one word, that we always, my Rebbe, Moiv Rabbi Rav Rosenzweig always said, when the Rambam says a word like this, our ears have to open up wide, and we have to wonder, what is the Rambam teaching us? When he makes a comparison. Ukeshem shemavarchin al ha'ana, just like there's a mitzvah to make a bracha before you get pleasure, kach mevarchin al kol mitzvah o mitzvah, so too there's a chiyuv to make a bracha before you do a mitzvah, v'yachar kach yasa osa. Ask Rav Soloveitchik, what is the connection between a bracha on a mitzvah and a bracha on pleasure? A bracha on pleasure, before I eat, before I drink. What is that called in halacha? That's called a matir, based on the Gemara. It belongs to Hashem before I eat it, like the Gemara says in brachas, the apple. It belongs to Hashem when I make a bracha that's asking rishus. Being matir, that's what allows me to partake of the food. But what does that have to do with the Birchas HaMitzvah? A Birchas HaMitzvah, Right, the Ritva says in Psachim Dav Zayin, a Berachas HaMitzvah is the Avodas HaNefesh before we do the Avodas HaGuf. But what does that mean? What does that mean? What's the Kishem? What's the parallel to Birchas HaNehenin? So Rav Soloveitchik said beautifully. Rav Soloveitchik said, even Birchas HaMitzvah needs a matir. Even Birchas HaMitzvah requires me to do something before. Why? What do you mean a matir? I have to be matir the food. What, I have to be matir the lulav? Says Rav Soloveitchik, who am I to think that my holding this palm branch, my eating this matzah, my doing this physical activity, I am going to do this and going to be able to span the space between the infinite and the finite, between man and God. I'm going to create a connection by doing this physical action. Who am I to think that there could be a relationship between us? It would be presumptuous for me to think that I'm going to have a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Rabbanu Shalom, with the Borei Olam. Who am I to think that? That's the Birchas HaMitzvah. The Birchas HaMitzvah is the matir. When I recognize there's a mitzvah to the mitzvah, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav. When I recognize there's a mitzvah to the mitzvah, now it's mutter for me to do the mitzvah. Again, there are many mitzvahs that don't have brachas, but they all have reasons for it. The Rishonim, the Rashba, and the Tshuva, Siman Yud Ches, in the first Chelek, he goes through all the mitzvahs that don't have brachas on them. But fundamentally, every mitzvah needs a bracha. And that's why it's so important to be over Lasiyasan. Before I do the mitzvah, I'm matir. That's the Kashem and the Rambam. And that's why we struggle and we try to get it for every mitzvah. Halakha Zeres is a little challenging, but Asvardim, Rav Avadia says, just make the bracha. They have regular over Lasiyasan. But the Ramah says we try to have it as much as we can, which means we light the candle. By a woman, lights the candle, doesn't look at them. Because part of the mitzvah is the hana, like we spoke about in the last year, oneg, right? We cover our eyes to not get benefit. Then we have, after the bracha, we say special tfilos. It's a special is ratzon to daven at that time for banim and banos that follow b'derech haTorah. And then we open up our eyes and look at it, so we get a little bit of over Lasiyasan, even if it's not a full one. This takes us through Hadlakas Neris. And B'ez Hashem, next time we pick up as we continue chronologically, as the Shulchan Aruch is chronological with the halachas of Tosefes Shabbos, accepting Shabbos, and the like. We will stop here. Have a wonderful day.